Do you have any other questions that you guys would like to ask, or yes, go ahead, sir.
Hi, Jim Dalbo with Congressman Austin Scott's office.
Sure.
Is there an ally or partner around the world that gets declassification, overclassification right there? Well, so we don't have to, we'll have 100%
Yeah.
of the time?
There is an Australian chapter
Yes.
in the book, and I'll let Henry discuss the Australian approach.
Let me give you the good news and then the bad news. The good news is the Australians reduced the number of classification categories they have, which, in my book, we should do. We're adding them. It's absurd. My favorite is, what is it, controlled unclassified information.
CUI, as you know it
Yes.
as.
That's your laundry list, okay, or your menu for the evening. I'm kidding a little, but they use that and have at times to keep things from Congress, which is not right. They got rid of several categories, and everyone pretty much ignored the reform, and then COVID hit, and they couldn't get to their machines to hit the classified button. And all of a sudden, everything was working perfectly. Oh, you want to know what the bad news is now? They got over COVID and they went back to the office. It suggests that if we want to solve this problem, perhaps we should create some kind of illness that would keep people from going to the office so much. It might be helpful. There is a instinct and inclination when you're in front of that machine to press those buttons and not think. So you can reform the various rules and guides and even reduce the number of clearances. But if you don't get people to understand that overclassification harms our security, I don't care what tool you come up with. They won't use it properly.
Part of the issue, which I think makes the legislation intriguing, is the shifting of the burden. Because when I used to do counterintelligence, when I was at NCIX, everything that I did on an email came with the classification. I was doing a lunch meeting on the system. The default had to be classified. So what the legislation is shifting the default. So the default will be, the assumption is you should be able to declassify the material in the interest for public interest test. And you have to make an argument why it should be classified. Right now we have a system where you have to make an argument why it should be unclassified. So it really, in legal terms, it shifts that burden.
Yeah.
And then the second issue, the assumption is, after 25 years, again, you have to carry the burden as to why it falls under one of the exceptions, why it wouldn't be made public. And thirdly, we're Americans, so we always believe that there will be a technological solution and fix. And this issue of the AI and testing different types of programs that will be able to declassify documents on scale, given how much is classified, is going to be the test to see whether or not this legislation is able to really cut through the dent of the paper, and will there be technology that will really assist people in doing it?
Now, there is another view on that, and I think everyone needs to be aware of it. And that is that the inanimate objects in our life don't actually solve the problem. They are tools. Not only that, I'm going to go further. The legislation, if it should pass in the House, last I heard, they're part of the constitutional system we have. They have not said boo yet, so they may have other ideas. May not be the one and done, and I don't think the technical things will be one and done. We will, in fact, start soon, I hope, what I would call, there's a guy named Steve Blank who calls this innovation theater. And I'm all for that because you do need that tool. But we've got to get a demand signal into the executive branch to want to do these things and use these tools when they're perfected. And that depends probably more on the press and the Congress than they appreciate.
So Ben, one of the questions for you is to comment on any of this, but if we could have a magic wand, what would you use that wand for in order to build up the resources of the public interest and classification board?
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Well, first, there's some fixes to the board that are in the legislation, particularly around the board has on uneven operating history. At one point, fell out of authorization completely and went into complete dormancy. And then, of course, we were down to 2 members at one point. So there's some just legislative technical fixes that I don't think are controversial around once members' terms expire, you're off. Unlike in many boards where you continue to serve until a replacement is named and cleared. Since we're talking about clearances, of course, anytime you have something that requires high-level clearances, TSSCI clearances, that can take a while, and so that's one of the fixes in this legislation. So by magic wand, there's just some basic fixes to the board that need to happen. We've got some people from the National Archives here in the Information Security Oversight Office, and they do, if anyone knows about ISOO, they have an incredible mandate, classification government-wide, and are no way resourced to do that job. And on top of that, we add on to their burden supporting the board and doing things like the report that actually resulted in, I think, we hope made contributions to this legislation around modernization of the declassification and classification system. It's available on the PIDB website. So those would be, I think, important things in terms of resources and fixes to the board. To ensure that ISOO has its resources, the board has the resources to support this work. Congress in recent years has added mandates to the board without a budget or without supporting resources. That has included now a study on nuclear testing and fallout in the Marshall Islands. You can read that report if interested. That was a huge effort, largely among staff at ISOO who had many other tasks at the same time. So those would be the kind of fixes that we would look at on AI. Just to return to that for a moment, it is a tool. The board has looked at different technology issues over the years and talked about them both on the blog and in our reports. And I'll just say very briefly that there's a lot of things we're talking about using artificial intelligence and machine learning for in terms of self-driving cars and healthcare and very what I would call high-end things. We are looking at using this, and I would hope the community looks at using this to process text. We're not asking it to drive cars. We're not asking it to fly planes. We're not asking it to do these things. We're asking it to do text recognition and then obviously do a lot of complexity and processing around understanding where this may fit in the classification system and whether it's appropriate for declassification. So this is, to my mind, right in the prime sweet spot with these incredible advances of AI and machine learning in this golden age we're going to be in. This is a prime application for this. So we're not looking to be at the frontier of robots dancing and driving cars, flying planes, doing surgery, those kinds of things. We're asking to do something that should really be in the prime sweet spot of this technology. When you look at what the private sector does with using AI and text recognition and text processing, I think there's a lot we can learn there.
Right, and as you know, it's being battle tested by major law firms in litigation now.
Right.
So that's sort of an intriguing issue. But